Right, thank you so much. What I have heard is everybody knows now and before the COP that we are in a crisis and we don't really have the determination to get out from that crisis, the climate crisis that we are facing. But actually this is coming with variety of crises, including the impact of the health crisis, the impact on the war and tough geopolitics, the impact on how advanced economies finance their way out from the health crisis by getting us today into stagflation in many countries and increasing the vulnerability of many countries in the developing world. If you happen to be in one typical developing economy, you are either facing a debt difficulty or a debt crisis or a debt catastrophe because it comes with a huge social impact. If we go back to the climate action and the role of civil society organizations, NGOs, including Oxfam, I'd like to tackle it from three areas on how in all of these discussions, the roundtables included that we have been doing with the regional economic commissions of the UN, where the practical solutions coming from NGOs and their assessments of the state we are in could be helpful. Because in an implementation COP, you are seeking solutions and you are seeking means to apply these solutions. As simple as that and as difficult as that as well. The first part, when it comes to knowledge sharing, despite all of the efforts, we know now that from recent surveys, including from Gallup, that 49% of the global population is not aware of what we're talking about here. They may use, I hope that they may use different terms or different parts to describe the challenge of climate and climate action, but the fact of the matter that people are not aware of what we are talking about. And this needs to change because you cannot really have a behavioral change in the leadership, especially with the politicians. In one way or another, they like to respond to the expectations of the general public. But if the general public is not necessarily aware, I'm not just referring to Gallup. There is some recent survey was conducted here in Egypt, and I hope that this will be changing significantly after this COP. It was conducted twice by one of the leading polling firms in the country, very credible. And they say 69% of the people are not aware of climate change, and their perception because of that about what kind of solutions is being challenged as well because they don't know the facts. Whom to blame here? You can, normally I was in government, so easy thing, blame government. Second easy thing, blame the private sector. But I would say, I think it's a kind of a collective responsibility to raise awareness through media, through networking, through our community's engagement. And I hope after this COP that the perception will be different, and at least with this kind of great work in this COP in particular, because it broke the silos, because not just talking about climate in a super scientific, complicated, jargon-heavy kind of an approach, but it is connecting, as we have seen during the thematic days, climate to energy, climate to role of women, youth and children, climate to food security, climate to finance, and all of these areas are part of the crises that I mentioned. So people get more acquainted with climate if we abandon the elitist approach and get it closer to where they live, to where they work, and how that being impacting their work. The second part, and I'll be very brief about it, and I recognize the important work of Oxfam in this area when it comes to scrutiny and verification of data, including the famous 100 billion. Those who attended Glasgow last year came out confused about the 100 billion. Is it 79 billion plus, as reflected in the official report? or is it like 20% plus? Those of us like me from developing economies, when you see these kind of competing metric, and Oxfam has its own credibility, I would say, well, Oxfam is right because, but actually, without blaming those who conducted that official report that said something about progressing and the 80%, they are victims of lack of formal criteria. Simply everything that is flying or throwing or coming from the advanced economies to the developing economies is being counted. Could be credit, gifts, short-term, long-term, through MDBs or direct. Everything is being counted and perhaps double counted as well. But I would say, some wise men say, well, could be the truth is in between the Oxfam report and the other report, but that needs actually going back to the methodology, and could be from now until Dubai, and this could be a suggestion that we had in mind, but we were super busy in the preparations for some work related to this COP in preparing the pipelines with impact on the positive impact, we hope, on society to have the pipeline of projects. So perhaps we can get the Oxfam technicians and analyst team in the room with the same group that did the other report, and we can just have this kind of good approach of comparing notes. Because at the end, I assume, and I'm a peasant, so I come with lots of good assumptions about behavior that people should really at least honest in what they do. They can commit mistakes because of lack of knowledge, but not because of sophistication of lying. So I think we need really to get all of these reports and verify them. And if it is a methodology issue or lack of metric, we need to fix it because we are talking about post-2025. Actually, out of concern, the two presidencies of COP26 and 27 asked Vera Songwe and Next Turn to have a report to update us on gaps of finance and how to bridge them, and I encourage you to have a look at it because it went through all of the reports available, and you may have as well your comments on it. My very final point is basically on implementation. So you have the science, the knowledge, changing behavior, disclosure of information is the best way to make people accountable to their promises. And the final thing, what we are, if God gives us more days and hours to live until next year, what will be the situation? Will it be better after an implementation COP, or worse because of the geopolitics, or lack of leadership? What I like to see, at least we have matters and resources under our control, which are basically about finance and investment. And the finance that I'm talking about here, I may have my own views that we don't really have the welfare or luxury to pick and choose. All hands on deck. Public sector is more than welcome to fix, especially the adaptation, because only 2 to 3% of finance to resilience and adaptation are coming from private sector. The heavy lifting is coming from the governments and the budgets of the state because of complications in the design of projects and because of the commercial feasibility of some of these projects. So we'll continue, it seems, relying more on the budgets of the state and public finance, including from MDBs to fix that. Private sector is more than welcome, and I have been seeing, and actually in this very day of God, that we'll be seeing great projects coming with consortiums, public-private partnerships to support green hydrogen projects, huge investments with outward orientation, with exports. As a citizen of this country, if I see a project of a couple of $1 billion, flow of long-term finance, enhancing energy, getting energy clean and green, with export possibilities, with training and investment in skills, I would tell, well, private sector is not welcome. No, it's more than welcome. It needs to be there. It needs to be leveraged. It needs to be supported. People have their own ideologies. Fine, they can just live with their ideologies and promote them even further. But when it comes to practice, we need to be practical. We need to have all sources of finance realizing their comparative advantage and flow where they should be, because we need more funding in mitigation, and we need more funding from the public sector, and we need less reliance on that. Each time a country without resources goes into project finance without adequate funding from taxpayers' money, it's more debt, more vulnerability to that distress, more complications in the future generations. If I have an investor who is willing to do the work, why not? I have an example. I was a minister, as I said, in this country. During my time, I was trying to fight for private sector investment to come. We managed to have the best FDI coming in terms of ratio. I was trying to get more, and the World Bank, 7 years after that, published a piece called something like the Charles Dickens story about the two cities, about how you compare Paris and London during his time. So they compared airports from my country, which have been financed by debt from the World Bank and the African Development Bank, and PPPs like what happened in Jordan and Turkey. Who is winning? Of course, the investment that came from public-private partnerships, less debt, better management, more efficiency, happier passenger, and more investments came with better resilience to them attached. So should I be ideological about sources of finance? And actually this kind of money that we borrowed for infrastructure and to energy should have been flowing to where public finance is more required, to health systems, to education, to support the accessibility of women to the labor market. I think we need to be practical, we need to be pragmatic, but we need to have integrity in the system and enhance accountability. Public finance can cause damage if not scrutinized. Private sector can do great job if it is supported. Both need transparency, disclosure, and accountability in order to enhance the opportunities for developing economies to progress. We cannot afford being more ideological about something as simple as finance to support the work where it should be going. Thank you so much.
Thank you.